Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Amazing Outdoors. This podcast is being presented by Upland Outfitters, home of the Relentless Pants, man. Those things are awesome. I had them out this week, and I pretty much, since I started the partnership with Jason, have been wearing those pants out anytime over the summer here where I had to do any work at the farm or dog training. I've even had them on the boat a little bit. They are tough as nails. I have yet to see a pull 'em thread. I've been in some nasty briars. They really held up a lot better than I thought. I can't recommend them enough. Hunting season is around the corner. Make sure you use discount code AMAZING, and I believe Jason is still offering 20% off on the Relentless Pants. So pick up a pair before hunting season is upon us, and you're out in the woods with a pair of ripped up pair of pants and sweating, unnecessarily, because Jason's pants and the Relentless Pants are top notch and breathable, light. So you're going to want them this early season. Make sure you get them now. I also have a quick announcement. We've got another kind of temporary partnership with Chippewa River Custom Rods. Tom is going to be offering 10% off with discount code AMAZING10. AMAZING10. And it's all caps. If you decide to call him for a custom rod, just make sure you tell him that you heard about custom rods on Amazing Outdoors podcast, and he will make sure that you get hooked up with a discount. All that information for both sponsors and partners are going to be in the show notes, so please support the podcast and these great companies. They are really good partners for the podcast, and I would like to see our listeners support them as well. So look them up, Upland Outfitters and Chippewa River Custom Rods. Enjoy today's show. That's right, we're back for another episode. Ladies and gents, this is the Amazing Outdoor Podcast. Today I have Tom Shank. He's the owner of Chippewa River Custom Rods. It was a cool cat to interview. I will tell you, I had a great time up at his place on the Chippewa River. Such a great time that I spent some money, and I brought home a one-piece 8-weight Musky fly rod that I'm going to be using in the guide business here over the next couple weeks. I apologize to everybody. I've been really, really busy, both trying to plan out season 2 here, which we're going to release in September, hopefully, and trying to run a few guide trips in between launching a fishing guide business on the St Croix River. Musky fishing's been okay. Smallmouth fishing was really good. We got a lot of rain, changed the dynamics a little bit, and it's still doing just fine, but we had to change the program. So it's been a little busy here. The content kitchen is definitely reopened. Just had my brother up, which the podcast should have released last week. And going to be hopefully having some really cool stuff coming up here for season 2 and a few wrap-up kind of interviews for season 1. So enjoy today's show with Tom. We'll get it kicked off right now. The podcast is on the road today, which is really cool. This is Brian, your host of Amazing Outdoors. I've got Tom, who's the owner of Chippewa
River Custom Rod.
Chippewa River Custom. Too many C's, man.
Yes, it is kind of long.
Well, all you got to say is Chippewa River, and most people know where we're talking about. So you got a really neat place here. We're on the banks of the Chippewa River, and sitting in like the only rod building company in North America that has a liquor license.
Yeah, close the bar down, just doing rods now. So.
Yeah, well, it's neat.
It's a good convert over to the switching professions. So it went well. Yeah,
bartending and owning bars usually aren't very good on your livers over the years.
It's been a blurry 18 years.
Is that how long you've owned the place?
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's very neat to be bellied up to the bar and see a bunch of rods stacked out here. I got a chance to cast a couple of them. I had the 4-piece, and just kind of mind blowing about the 1-piece, but we'll get into a little bit of that in a bit. Why don't you give the listeners a little introduction to kind of who you are and kind of what led you up to building some awesome 1-piece musky rods?
Basic story. Name's Tom Shank. I grew up over in St. Paul area. Kind of the Woodbury. It was still it wasn't quite the suburb that everyone knows it is now. We still used to ride around on our bicycles with shotguns on our back then. I am that old. So. And then went in the military for 4 years and got back and kind of hopped around the cities. Just had different rental properties and did a bunch of bartending gigs. And got sick of the city life when I turned about 31-ish. And I moved up to northern Wisconsin in 2002. Just kind of on a whim, bought a bar and was going to guide a lot in Musky. Fly fishing was just kind of starting to take off. I had a drift boat way back then even.
Did you really?
And so I was going to do a lot of guiding, but the bar kind of took over and was busier. And so just kind of had to go that way with it.
Sure.
So, having the bar kind of led me out of the full-time guiding thing and more into making the rods.
Sure.
But I had made rods since I'd been about 10 years old. So
really?
I was familiar with it, yeah. And then when I first moved up, it was slow at the bar. I used to work as a home wrapper for St Croix. So I'd go up about once a week and pick up 100, 150 rods and bring them back, wrap them over at the house. And if someone showed up late at night or whatever, I'd give that up and come back over and serve beer. And when they left, I'd go back over and wrap rods, just doing whatever to pay the bills when you're not living in the city. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So
yeah,
it was a great transition. And then kind of ran it full time then from, I quit working for St Croix in probably 2004. And then I started selling a lot of the custom rods through here. And I didn't really push it all that much until probably the last 5 years. I started doing more pushing on social media and actually really trying to sell it.
Sure.
Then it just kind of happened to work out that the whole pandemic thing hit, and the bar industry up here was booming last summer, believe it or not. So
oh, yeah.
I kind of rode that out, and then winter and fall came, and people just started getting sick. A lot of my customers did anyways, and I just closed the doors. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm just going to build custom rods. I'm too busy with rods now. So
yeah.
And hopefully, that's just not a pandemic bump, but I think it's still staying busy. So
I'm not gonna lie, I'm sitting up here in the wintertime, not a lot of room of ventilation. I was a bar I hung out in Appleton years ago that was kind of about the same size, and they had some patrons over the pandemic that got sick too, and just kind of the nature of this virus. It's respiratory. So the winter time's kind of the worst. And to sit inside
once I had
here.
to close the doors and couldn't keep I didn't even turn the air conditioning on last summer. I just left the doors open with a big barn fan sucking air out. And kind of once the doors got closed, I was kind of freaked out a little bit.
There's liability there and everything else. So. And especially if you got this going on, what the heck, why not?
Yeah. So I had the rods going and figuring, if I get sick for some odd reason, it's very rare or whatever at my age, but if it does, then I'm not going to be able to do the rods. So I'll just stick to the rods, and it really slows down around here in the wintertime. It's
Oh yeah.
so much of the population are snowbirds and go south for the wintertime. And
Yeah, you're not
stay all
on
winter.
huge snowmobile area.
Yeah, snowmobiling up here, I'm Holcomb area by the Holcomb flowage. It's not a huge thing. There's quite a few on the weekends, but the snow's not consistent enough that if you're going to plan a family trip and take a week off, that you can book up here in advance and expect the trails to be open, because you never really know. It's really spotty.
Well, and operating a business, it relies on those people coming. It's tough. I can imagine it'd be
but
real
when
tough.
the snow's, there's always the rivers to run, and when the snow is good, you get people that come up to their cabins, but you don't get a lot of. It's on the weekends if you get anything. It's not like all week long like it is in the UP where it's nuts all week long. We just don't get that here. Or even Hayward gets it a lot more than we do, and that's an hour and a half north of here maybe, but they get a lot more consistent snow. Well,
yeah, exactly. It's just right on that kind of border.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just getting into the northwoods,
It's just on the edge of the northwoods, but it's far enough out of the city that you're not in the city, but it's not far enough into the northwoods that a lot of people know about it yet.
Yeah.
It has gotten a lot busier over the last 18 years.
Oh, I believe that.
Really over the last 4 years, it's gotten big.
But looking at some of the history, it looks like it was pretty busy up here.
Yeah, it was it was a lot
50s.
busier back in the day before automation, and it was really big for logging and farming. Well, every milking parlor, it's less people milking. Every processor in the woods is 6 people without chainsaws. So it's really the Northwoods industries, the outdoor industries, not outdoor like hunting or fishing, but looking at the outdoor like farming and logging and stuff like that's really gotten automated over the years. And
and all those. I mean, you drive through any small town, even up north or out in the farm field land.
When I first moved here, there was a crew of older individuals who were born here, grew up here, worked their whole life here, and were retired here and didn't head south in the wintertime. But now it seems like the older generation up here now, they had grown.
This is their vacation home that they moved to.
They moved to their summertime vacation home, and then they go south for the winter a lot of times still.
Yeah, I see that too. Even I've got a friend that's over by winter, and he's on Chip up there, and that's how their folks are. But it was too far away from the grandkids, so
it's been interesting too. Now I'm starting to see a few remote workers come into the area that bought houses that work remotely, so we're just kind of getting a little bit of bump from that too.
Yeah, I
full timers.
It's one of the reasons we bought out of the cities was because I really just needed an internet connection.
Yeah.
That and access to water. And then grouse woods.
We're getting that out here now in the country. So it's been good. We actually finally got high-speed internet here. I just got off of dial. Well, it would have been dial-up. I had satellite, but man, I was still getting Netflix on DVD in October. So it hasn't been long.
Hey, I appreciate that, man. It's really come. The digital world has come all the way up here.
Yes, it has. Yeah.
It's hard to get escape. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, and it's amazing how good the service is out in the rural areas now. Some of the rural areas,
even the cell signals.
Yeah, they're getting better up here. We get huge issues. I think a lot of times if it's a tourist area, you get issues on the weekends.
Sure.
So many people show up, it just overwhelms the towers. Up here, you might as well not even try to make a phone call on the weekends between noon and until everyone's done posting stuff on Facebook, I think, whenever that occurs.
Yeah, but there's still a lot of places up here that you can find some quiet. I know we had some run-ins on the Flambeau the other day, and I was running really late. We were hoping to stop here on our way back. And when I got out, I was supposed to already be eating dinner with my wife back in the cities, and there was no service at all. I couldn't get a hold of anybody until I got 2 miles down the road.
Yeah.
So I like those places, though.
Yeah, they're nice. They're nice to get to. You phones can sometimes forget that they're there, but there's still a few out there.
Yeah, I know of quite a few of them yet.
It's not really even that remote a lot of times. It's crazy sometimes.
Yeah, it just takes a little bit of topography.
Yeah. And you're off the charts.
So when you guided up here, where did you kind of where'd you guide at? You were a drift boat guy. You had
I just worked here. I worked with myself, and then Joe Flater referred me a lot of trips.
Okay,
it was a lot of gear stuff back then.
Yep.
The fly stuff was starting to take off. Did a few anglers that were fly anglers, but like I said, it was just in its infancy. Everyone was still trying to figure out how to use saltwater stuff for musky stuff, and it wasn't quite they weren't quite right.
Yeah.
They sorted a lot of stuff's gotten sorted out over the last 15 years on this.
It has.
The flies have really changed a lot.
But it's still a new frontier.
Yeah. It is so pretty new. We were, some of the commercial flies with the synthetics, it just didn't work with the muskies and the big teeth. It was like throwing rope in a gar's mouth. You couldn't get the hook to move no matter what you did. And, now, I think everyone's just kind of basically almost gone to real light synthetic Chanels and bucktail and feathers, and that's it, and kept it real simple. Otherwise, it kind of gets tangled up in their teeth. You don't really get a good hook set into them a lot of times with that stuff that's got too much body to it.
Oh, well, and too with the articulation now and being able to drop that hook back in the tail.
Oh, yeah.
That's got to be a huge help. In comparison, I still tie some pretty big deceivers and a couple like just single hook, small kind of Buford flies. And even I noticed that, a lot of times they come up and whack that tail of the feathers. They don't commit and they don't ever get the hook in their mouth.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that too. And now that you're seeing a lot of that kind of hook drop back and further into the fly, I think that was a huge game changer.
Yeah, the hookup rate's way better on that. And the flies have gotten so much bigger now too. I mean, 6 inches was big back in the day, but it was a lot of small stuff. So
I hate to say it, but 6 inches is kind of big in my box too.
Yeah. I tend to keep them on the smaller side myself too.
I like my shoulder and my elbow.
Yeah. There's times in the fall where we'll throw some big stuff, but mostly I throw a little bit smaller stuff. So.
Yeah, I enjoy musky fishing more in the summertime. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't get me wrong, the fall's when they eat, it's got the whole dynamic to it, but I like being in a tank top and shorts and no shoes and, musky fishing from a boat.
It's usually a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
It's usually a lot more comfortable unless you're real adverse to heat. But October and November can be pretty brutal up here a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
Banging ice out of the boat and whatnot.
Yeah, it's not what I would consider ideal temperature for me.
No. Frozen hands, and it's tough.
So I find that, the times that I really enjoy musky fishing, which is right now, bigger isn't necessarily the ticket.
Yep. You get a lot of nice big smallmouth too if you're throwing on that smaller side of the musky stuff, but kind of what you think would be huge for smallmouth. It's surprising what they'll crush and eat. Oh,
I think last week, all but one of the follows I had 3 on the flambeau in a day and a half. All of them came on what most guys would consider smallmouth gear.
Yeah.
Like a 4-inch synthetic EP kind of fly. Mm-hmm. I mean, kind of Larry Mann style.
Oh yeah. They'll chase small stuff all day long.
Yeah. And I don't. This time of year, I think they eat small stuff on a more regular basis, and
I think so too.
And for me, it's just that when I get a chance to fish, it's like I just want to catch one. I really don't care if it's a big one. Yeah, it's just being able to.
You might miss out on some more sizable fish, but you get a lot more active.
Yeah,
a lot more active fish. So.
Yep, and fishing with customers too that don't really do it on a regular basis. That's where I start, just because the goal is to catch a muskie.
Yeah,
nobody's setting a size on that muskie. I hope not. Man.
Asking for a lot.
I don't have a muskie. I don't have a magic wand. Yes. Yeah, I find that the fish kind of chooses you, and regardless of a lot of circumstances.
Yeah,
you were telling me a story where a guy caught one.
Just, complete mess. Hit the side of the boat with the fly, tumbles over to the other side of the boat, and the fly lands right in his fly line. Muskie comes up and eats, takes off, and basically hooks itself, and the kid lands it. It was unbelievable. Try it 100 times over and it'll never happen again. They do weird stuff.
They're very unpredictable.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I love chasing them. There's always the mystique of it. And there's I don't know, especially with the fly, I've referenced this on the podcast before, but you hear like Ted Nugent talk about the mystical flight of the arrow. Yeah. There's something to that with fly line, and then you throw in the northern Wisconsin northwoods kind of mysticism with all the folklore around musky. And
yeah, it's an interesting combo. It's definitely two worlds that typically haven't been put together, over the last, I don't know, there's guys been doing it a long time, but it's really been gaining steam here in the last, I'd say 10 years.
The last decade, yeah.
Really gathering steam, and some of the industry is starting to gear more towards it and stuff. And they're starting to make some pike and musky centered equipment, more like the lines and stuff like that. And the flies have definitely gotten there, but
yeah, they have. So you buddies with Brad then? Because you guys are about the same age, aren't you?
Me and Brad Bohen moved to this area about the same time.
Okay.
And then he's stuck with the guiding. He didn't buy into a bar like I did. He's stuck with the guiding, and we kind of both did our own thing and kind of separated for a while now. And he's not far north of here now. We know each other. We went to school together for a year. We didn't know each other.
Okay.
But we just met at a fly shop down in the cities, kind of maybe like a year before we moved up here.
Sure.
And then we were probably in close contact for a year or two after that. And then his business kind of went his way and mine kind of went my way. And
sure.
I was kind of here and he was more north of Haywards.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just a big industry name, Yep. And it kind of, I don't know if he's the inventor of that kind of Buford fly, and I'm sure
he tied up a lot of flies in the beginning there. He did a lot of stuff there right at the beginning with kind of changing up the way some flies were tied.
Yep. I mean, he's definitely well known for that.
Everything he's done. I really have, like I said, I really have no idea. I kind of almost faded out of the business for a while. Like I said, I was just building custom rods, and I kind of stuck to the spinning rods. I figured that would be a little bit simpler to get into. The fly industries people get set in their ways So to come in as a custom builder is kind of a daunting thing. And then I got into the one-piece fly rods, and that was really the start and the push of me selling more fly rods was that. And now probably 60 to 70% of my sales now are fly rods, if not more. But, and a lot of them now aren't the one pieces. I've gotten into the 2 pieces and the 4 pieces. So guys kind of got to know me and got to know my name kind of got out there on the 1-piece musky fly rod, but also for customer service and stuff. And now I can do, I'm doing fly rods all over the gamut, everything from 2 weights to 12 weights. So
yeah, after casting that 1 piece though, I know where I'm going to call next time I'm looking to buy a rod.
Yeah, if you can handle a 1 piece and you're up in the upper Midwest, there's a lot of shipping issues. Shipping's very expensive, so it also leads to issues when there's a warranty work to be done too to get it back to me. But if you're in the upper Midwest and Speedy delivers to you, it's definitely the way to go if you can manage transporting it. And most people just leave them rigged up in their boats or in a rod locker or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, and I've got a couple boats I bounce between, and that's my dilemma, but I'll figure that out. There's just that 8 weight. I threw a 8-9 inch fly on. That's a fairly good size fly. I had it on my just standard 8 weight and I struggled with it. I moved it over to the 10 weight that I got from Dan down at Musky Fool.
Yep.
And, I mean, that was great, light 10 weight, but I felt it after doing it for 2 days. It's just, it's musky fly fishing. One of the big drawbacks that I think a 4-piece rod has is it doesn't hold its rigidity all the way down very well. Those ferrules, I don't know what it is. I picked up that, and it's 2 inches shorter, but it feels almost like a telephone pole.
Yeah.
But it doesn't cast like those really big saltwater tarpon rods that I've picked up before, you know.
It's kind of weird. It's kind of got like a really weird, like kind of parabolic-y type action. It's kind of like, I don't know. It has to do it must have to do with that the length of the fibers run the whole length of the rod.
That's the only thing I can think of.
There's not that break, and you don't get the flat spot, you know, where you get the ferrules, and you're going to get a flat spot where those things are doubled up, and you get flat spots where they put the guides on it also, you know, they kind of design that in there to, you know, to get it
when I was
want it or whatnot. But yeah, the one piece is definitely a different beast to cast. It really unfurls the line real nice. It delivers the power clean through it. The two piece, I think it's like anything else. The less moving parts you get, the better.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, your 4-piece 10-weight that I have, it's a great rod. Yeah. It's got a, you know, triangle reel seat on it. It's got extra butt end to it. Yeah. Cork on it is super high quality. I was telling you about my Scott title problem, and I just don't see that happening with your rod, the way it's constructed.
It's good.
I mean, I don't see how it could. It's just the cork is not constructed in the same fashion. Laid onto the rod. Crap, I have that rod at home.
Cork is a tough issue these days. It's getting tougher and tougher to get any quality, and the expense of it's pretty wild. I know I was looking up for a customer that was looking at just a regular casting musky rod, and I think like a 15-inch chunk of cork was retailing for $45.
Wow.
So yeah, so like a 7-incher on a thing, you know, you're talking $30 just for the cork on it. It's extremely expensive.
And honestly, that the way that synthetic felt was just different, and it felt very comfortable in my hand, which I wasn't. I wouldn't think that initially.
Yeah, the grips that I'm using on my on the Predator fly rods, on the 1 and the 2-piecers, and I don't put them on my 4-piecers standard. Give a call. It can be done. It can be done. You know, my rods aren't.
It says custom rod.
Yeah, a lot of people say custom rods, and they're not all that custom anymore. You know, as they get bigger, they start to go more and more pre-built stuff.
Well, and looking at your studio here, you've got the ability to do what people want.
Yeah, it's a pretty quick thing for me to do, and I do have everything on hand. So usually my builds are usually only a week to 2 weeks out for a custom rod. I know it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Heck, I know it's pretty quick for a lot of the big manufacturers to even get you a warranty exchange back at that pace.
Yeah.
But try to move them out, and I don't like it's like even everything right down to the hook keep. I don't put hook keeps on my stuff. Some people like them. Put it in the note to the seller. Done. You know, there's no extra charge for any of that or stuff like that. So yeah. If it's not built the way that you want it on my site, the way you see it on my site, just let me know and we can change it. Unless to me, I just don't feel comfortable doing it, then I'm going to tap out and say, no, I'm not doing that for you for these reasons or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of times I imagine you field calls from, you know, fishermen.
Yeah.
They're not rod builders.
Yeah.
So there's some requests that are not realistic.
Yeah. And I've done stuff that didn't sound when they first said it, like, you want what? And it's like, okay, I guess. I mean, I ain't going to hold it against you, but, you know, so, yeah, I can do it. But, you know, like now with this the heavier fly musky stuff, I won't do anything without ceramic guides on it. I got away from snake guides. It's just.
Yeah. That alone, when I got the 4-piece, was like, whoa. Although that rear guide is like a centimeter too big to go in my rod tube.
Oh, is it? Yeah, it is huge. That size 20 is huge. That could be changed too, you know.
Well, we might have to talk about the next one.
Okay. Oh, in the rod tube in the boat? Or okay, in the boat. Okay.
Yeah, in the boat, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just and that can be changed too, because that's just PVC.
Oh, so, in the boat.
Yeah, I think it's 1-inch PVC, so you can go to 1.5.
Yeah, I use pretty large guides on my stuff, but
it makes a big difference.
Yeah, it casts through it a little bit easier. Doesn't ice up as easy in the fall.
That's what I was really kind of looking at is those snake guys. I've winter fly fished for trout for a number of years, And that's just the most damning part. You know, you go through all that effort to get out there and you get a couple attempts.
Yeah.
They spook so damn bad.
Yeah.
And to have those frozen guides mess you up. And here in, musky fishing, you start to get in that cold water, you're starting to deal with that ice again.
Yeah. I still deal with it with the single foot ceramics, but I really got away from them because there was getting to be so much line wear.
Oh yeah, a lot of those sinking lines have a lot of abrasion on them too.
Yeah, they have a lot of abrasion. It's a pretty dirty game. You know, we're not the cleanest. You know, the boats, people are in and out in the fall, and you got a lot of people are wearing their waders or big heavy boots, and you get some sand in there. And musky guys don't really clean their lines all that much. And as the size of the flies have increased, I've really started seeing a lot more wear on the guides, and that's why I got away from them.
Yeah, and I think when I was talking to Dan about kind of reviewing a rod for, kind of buying something for that bigger fall fly, because it's just personally not something I've really enjoyed doing. I'll still throw an 8-inch fly in the fall and catch musky and seem to do okay. But again, I got into this probably 7-8 years ago, and it was still kind of that big fly stuff was still getting ironed out. Articulation was just kind of
they're just starting to link hooks together and shanks. And all that was getting.
I remember buying a couple and links and trying to tie some of these things and even purchasing a few of these flies. And it's just like this isn't fun. I couldn't. With the equipment I had at the time, I couldn't cast those big flies. Yeah. Luckily, I saved them all because now I can. And lines come a long ways as well. But so I kind of hooked, and the ceramic guides were the biggest selling point for me because I was looking at a Loomis rod. I was looking at, I think, TFO came out with like a big fly rod recently, and yours hands down. And then there was icing on the cake too. You're a Wisconsin boy, so
that's good to know. That's good to know.
I like to support local businesses, and especially guys like you, man. I mean, this is America, and without having good loyal customers, getting the word out for you, and
I've been very blessed with that. As far as I haven't spent hardly anything on marketing. It's just been just rolling word of mouth, and that's kind of the way I wanted it.
Yeah,
I didn't want to. Hell, I was worried about blowing it up and not being able to keep up with kind of when I was first really getting into it more and more. I was more worried about having that happen to me and then me not being able to support the customer.
Sure.
Or, sure the supply chain's good, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Kind of thing. So just making sure you had all that down and
where
you can go with volume now. But I'm probably doing 15, 20 rods a week now. Pretty routine. So it's been real steady. I handle it fairly nice, and I still got plenty of time to talk to people about rods and whatnot. So it's a good balance right now. So,
well, it's one of those things that one of these days you're probably going to have to, hire somebody.
I'll have to get someone to do the bookwork or something.
That's the first thing I hired out when my wife started a company. I got it set up, and we had to deal with it in April. Right, this year. That's because she started her company in the second quarter.
Okay.
And so we had until June to get it all figured out, but they extended the tax season this year. So I sweat for 2 months until May 15th rolled around. And then finally, my accountant called me back around June 1st, and he's like, don't worry, you got 30 days yet to get the books ironed out. And I'm like, well, I didn't know if I did anything wrong for the last 60 days. So I need time to recover.
It's the glorious end of owning a business that people don't see or consider is the bookwork and that back end stuff. But
and just cash flow management. And because, it's very easy to spend money that has to be paid out quarterly in taxes.
It is. And everything over the last year, it was like, when they mandated the bars closed down, I was like, oh, okay. That was back in not last March, the March before. And I'm like, okay, I'll focus on fishing rods then, goody. And then 24 hours later, I get a phone call from my supplier and they're like, we've been forced to shut down. We got 24 hours. So you need to order everything you need. in the next 24 hours. Otherwise, you're not getting it. And we don't know for how long. And it's like,
okay, it's shit or get off the pot moment.
Yeah, how much money do we put out down here? And oh yeah, by the way, make sure you remember everything, because if you forget as so much as one part, you're not selling a single rod. So you just got a lot of money sitting around that's doing nothing. You know, like a truck without a computer chip.
Yeah, you know, exactly. And that cash flow management is really, there's so many moving parts to everything today that I think it's hopefully people learn to secure up their supply chains a little bit more than we have been over the years. But we won't even go there. So let's kind of dive into the next segment, kind of our conversation. Let's go. We've been talking about rods, but let's talk about really kind of what y'all offer, because you offer not only one-piece musky rods, you offer two-piece musky rods or fly rods. You offer four-piece fly rods. You offer trout stuff, smallmouth stuff, spinning rods, bait casters. I see around here. You got a bunch of different thread colors, and
I can basically offer almost any rod that they all kind of go together the same. They're all a little bit different, but it's kind of like I said, unless you're starting to get into like the big tuna stuff and stuff like that. I mean, it is all kind of the same, but I'm not real comfortable with it because I'm not familiar with it. But I fished everything from spinning for trout, ultralight for panfish, casting rods for bass. So I kind of know it all, as well as the fly stuff. I cut my teeth on trout, and when I first started with panfish and bass, and then moved down to the trout, and then moved down to the musky. So I kind of got knowledge of all of it, but I kind of equate it to like putting together an automobile, whether it's a big pickup truck or a subcompact. It's kind of all got four wheels and an engine, just the size and
scope are a little different.
They just kind of vary, but the process is really, really similar. So
that makes a lot of sense.
Leads it so I can offer a lot of stuff. I've got kind of what most people would use in the upper Midwest as far as fly fishing, spinning, and casting rods. The casting rods, I haven't really gotten too much love on or whatever. You know what I mean? I do put out quite a few of them, but not a lot. It's mostly, like I said, mostly fly rods now.
Well,
spinning rods.
I need a few of those for non-fly customers as well. So we'll definitely.
Actually, I made some. They were kind of crazy. It was spinning rods for musky fishing because it was for a guide, and he got sick of the customers that couldn't throw the bait casters.
That's exactly what I need.
So we went to those. So it's kind of weird. We just took a lighter musky casting blank and put spinning guides on it. Kept the bend towards the fish, whatever, and put some double-footed saltwater spinning guides on it, and some, a little bit longer corks or whatever, and kind of made it appropriate. Just kind of felt around with it until it felt right, and here you go. And it works great. The guy really likes it. I
was going to ask you how
he loves it. I'm not sure what reels he's got on it, or
Yeah, reels. I can figure that side out. It's finding the rod.
Finding the rod's tough, but I mean. There's a lot of saltwater guys that are fishing tarpon with spinning gear, but they're not.
It's a different
thing, kind of. They're throwing something a lot lighter, but the reel, I think, is where you'd probably get a lot of wear with those the big baits. That would kind of be the weird thing. I don't know how the reels hold up, the spinning reels hold up to that abuse or not, but
I don't know. It's abusive. There's no way around it.
Yeah, even with casting gear, it's a pretty abusive sport, Start throwing those big casting plugs.
You got a Medusa over there hanging. That's 20 inches long.
They're talking. They're throwing stuff that's like a pound.
I was going to say that looks almost like 2 pounds.
I don't know how they do. I don't know how they do that all day long.
I don't either. I can actually throw a 6-inch fly pretty much all day long. You go up from there, then my time gets a little bit limited.
Guys, man, I don't even know if I could carry their tackle boxes down to the boat. I'd be done for the day just doing that. Like, okay, I'm done.
I know. I got 2 guys coming up that I went to high school with, and we're gonna float some of the rivers up here. Probably hit the Flambeau, maybe the Chip for a day, and I'm bringing the raft because it's just. I got a drift boat, but there's some access points that I just don't want to deal with. So we'll just bring the raft 3 guys. We can fish it, no problem. But I'm like, dude, it's a raft. It's 12 feet. Like,
Can't bring a lot of stuff.
you can't bring a lot of stuff. I mean, I have a lot of gear, and I'm a fishing guide here, so like, get it down to a couple trays, and we'll make it work. And if you want it, and you think if you need it, I probably got it. It's kind of how I put it. It's like,
Well, and the rivers up here aren't real. As long as you're up above, like Eau Claire, Chippewa Falls, they're not real deep. So
No.
you don't need a lot of baits to work. Your water column's pretty limited. You don't have a lot to deal with, so you're not having to run a lot of deep water stuff. So you can narrow up your tackle.
Exactly.
A lot like that.
Yeah, it's I mean, I don't even run any. I leave, if I'm not fishing a lake, I leave like all my big stick musky baits at home.
Yeah.
If I'm taking a conventional guy out, yeah, it's like spinners and top water kind of, it's the basics and a little bit of plastic,
That's the thing too up here a lot with the rivers is a lot of times you can't, those huge flies, in order to cast them, you need such a heavy line that it just it sinks too much, and you're snagged up quite a bit, so you it's a weird balance on.
I play the intermediate game.
How you do it, on how you do things that way, you got to work that. You got to remember your water column, but you still got to kind of try to cast that fly. So sometimes narrow water column, you're trying to cast, you're trying to keep that weight down on the fly line and still throw as big a fly as you possibly can on it.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Yeah. I fished at St Croix. I've got a commercial use authorization permit for the Croix, and there's some stretches that I really like to fish for muskies that vary in depth quite a bit.
Yep.
And there's just a few holes that it can be 12 feet deep.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like the deepest, and you go down south where you're kind of made your delineation line. That's shallow.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but even at 12 feet, the approach that you're taking is different than 90% of the river I'm fishing.
Yeah.
So it's challenging with fly fishing because you gotta
throw it out there and sit and count for a while.
I tried that the other day when I'm working. I just went to a smaller fly, and it worked. That actually moved a fish shortly after that. So, but with the rod company, your claim to fame is kind of this one piece musky rod.
Yep.
I casted an 8-weight, and it casted to me like a 4-piece 10-weight, but it also felt like an 8-weight.
Yeah, guys tell me they're kind of like 8 9s, or some people are, the 8 feels like a 10, but it casts a little bit on the heavier side. They're really light though. They weigh in at 5.4 ounces, I think it is, on a good digital scale. I don't know where some of these people are weighing their rods at.
No, what I again, the guides were a big selling deal for me, but now that I've casted this, I'm looking at this 8-weight as kind of one of the things I noticed while I was out on the river is I brought that fly in to do a figure 8, and that rod is stout at the tip.
Yeah,
to be able to turn that fly in the water, which even on any 4-piece rod I've ever done that with, you don't get that same feel in the rod. Yeah. I feel that if the musky did hit, I would have a little rod there to play with, unlike a 4-piece where it's just, it's a strip set all the way.
Yeah.
Not that you should be using a rod to set the hook on a musky, but it's a, you know what I'm saying?
Kind of a combo thing. Well,
it's a combination.
Close boat side, you don't know what the hell you're doing anyways.
Yeah, you're just
whatever.
Sick. Shaking.
Just keeping the excitement level down is the hard part, and worry about the rest after that.
That was my biggest problem when I first started musky fly fishing, was just, not even the trout set issue, was just allowing the fish to eat the fly.
Yeah, it's so easy to pull from them.
Probably 30 fish, I pulled the fly right out of their mouth the first season.
Yeah, if you can wait until they hit and then turn.
Exactly. That's what I tell everybody.
Wait for the turn. Just wait for the turn. But it's kind of like telling a bass fisherman when they're fishing topwater frogs, wait till you feel the fish before you set the hook. That's hard to do. You see the fish splash and you set the hook right away. I don't know how many bass I've lost.
I do it all the time. I was telling you too.
When you're a kid, it's like...
I mean, I try not to do it still.
Yep,
I
you
do
still
it professionally, and I still do it. You know, that's why a lot of times I like topwater fishing when I'm rowing because I get a couple casts in, and I'm watching the river, and I'm not even paying attention to the lure, and, you know, that's when I get my biggest fish, man.
There's one, yeah, but don't be watching it though. Those topwater baits.
Oh, it'll kill you. It'll definitely kill you.
So, yeah, no, the one pieces have really been my huge selling point. Like I said, that kind of got me my foot in the door with a lot of customers who then
I'm going to adjust your mic one more time.
Yep. Branched out and tried, you know, in the other stuff that I was offering, the multi-piece rods and the bass rods and stuff like that, and the trout rods. So I'm more into the bass than the trout. You know, I haven't quite broke that trout market yet, but
it's a tight knit group of guys.
It's a tight knit group of guys. Yeah. You know, so you just kind of gotta.
There's a few names that have kind of cornered that industry for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're doing all graphite blanks?
Yes.
Okay.
They're all graphite. I haven't played with any glass. I know it's getting popular again, but no, I don't do any glass. Not that it would be, you know, much different. You know.
Yep. Just a supply chain thing for you.
Just a supply, and you know, I can get it too. It's just something I haven't done. I've got wholesale accounts at, you know, most places. I got them at Mudhole. I got them at Get Bits. I've probably got 5 different, 6 different places where I get stuff from.
Sure.
Because customers will say they want a certain guide or whatever, or certain this or that, or so most of these places it's not real. As long as you got your license and that's what you actually do for a living, to get a thing from them ain't too bad. And I've even gone to the point where I'll just order it retail from places if that's what they really, really want.
Yep.
And I've always just my pricing on my rods, I've always just basically based off what the MSRP of the parts are.
Yeah.
Kind of go with that. And then I usually charge about $30-$40 to assemble it and ship it. And that's it. And then all my prices listed on the website, except for the one piecers, because there's some big shipping issues with that, which we can get into.
Well, and that's why I'm here today.
Shipping outside.
And I wanted to interview you.
Outside of speedy delivery, which they do, I think about 9 states in the upper Midwest. It gets crazy. It's like over 100. And I charge 125, and usually I'm losing money on the shipping, believe it or not. But
9 foot. I mean,
the 3 big shippers dropped their bulk rate from 9 feet to 8 feet here about probably eight years ago. And that's when you seen the end of the one-piece rods. And that's why all one-piece rods used to be 8'10" and not 9 foot, was because they had to be under that 9 foot. So they cut them off 2 inches shorter and said, here it is. So you can get under the shipping.
Just a random question here. I mean, you're a rod builder, and, thinking about that, what would be the disadvantage that a customer would see if you went to like a just under 8 foot rod? So like a 7'10".
For like a casting?
For musky rods.
For musky rods? The bait casting ones that I do make, they offer an 8'10" one and a 7'10" one.
Okay. What about fly rods?
Fly rods?
Have you ever played around with anything like that?
It's tough to get anything under. It's honestly, if you get below a 6 weight, or if you get above a 5 weight, so a 6 weight and up, you're pretty hard pressed to find anything that's made that's under 9 foot. Most of them are at 9 foot. I had a customer who was looking for a 8'6" weight he wanted, and I couldn't source a blank. I could cut 6 inches off the butt section of the blank, and he'd have one longer piece and one short piece, and it would work. But other than that, I couldn't find a 6 weight out there. Maybe if I dug more in the internet, you could find it, but he couldn't find anything out there commercially.
Yeah,
and I couldn't find anything early either.
I'm kind of considering something that is in the smallmouth, like a smallmouth specific rod. Yeah. And a lot of times with how fishing frogs and deer hair frog kind of patterns, you're not that far away from the shore, so the benefits of the long rod really aren't there.
Yeah,
you just kind of need something. I need something that stores a little bit better, that customers could handle a little bit better on shorter casts. And I really like the way those one pieces feel. I have a feeling that it's just they just feel more stout all the way through the rod. That's the only way I can describe it. And you don't sacrifice any weight. It just feels like you're up a rod, but it was weird looking at it. Like, I'm expecting the rod to droop at the end of and it's solid straight all the way down.
Yeah.
It's a weird deal.
Yeah, it is. And,
the UPS guy is here. Is he going to come in?
no, he probably won't. He'll probably throw it out on the doorstep here or something. I'm not sure. He's here every day. The girlfriend's back from vacation, so he's going to have to go back onto overtime. Her Amazon Prime was stalled out there for about 2 weeks. Now she's going full blast. She's back in business.
So, what else have we not covered with the rod? I know we beat kind of the one-piece musky rod apart. I can't tell people enough that if they can handle it, they got to take a look at one. And if you're up in the Northwoods, I think, Tom, you're open with a little notice.
Yeah, with a little notice. I'm usually around. I'm kind of don't really have a retail location. Kind of do. I'm usually here. I live right on site.
Yeah.
So it's, I might be building rods. I might be knocking something off the honeydew list. But I'm usually
cutting the grass, or
I might be out occasionally riding the bicycle or something like that. But I'm usually 80 to 90% of the time I'm around, and if I know within 24 hours, I can usually move stuff around and adjust. And,
sure. Well, you've been really accommodating to me after canceling the other day and being late today because of the errands I had to run prior and some traffic. So.
Oh yeah, summertime traffic. Well, at least it was better than your trip on the river.
Oh yeah.
Or incidents.
I already have a canoe paddle strapped to the frame, and we haven't even hit the water again yet.
Yeah, I've been out there and forgotten stuff too. It's break things and you don't think about it, and it's.
Well, and for me, I bought 2 new boats this year, so I had an older drift boat that I had all this stuff kind of. Routine. Yeah.
Get out of the routine.
And that was the 5th or 6th time the raft was on the water. And then I had a Clackacraft I bought at the beginning of June, which has been on the water, a fair amount of times, but they're still kind of new boats to me. So I'm still kind of vetting out the routine and what can go where, because it's all different from my old boat. So that was a mishap on preparedness on my part. Now you got bit in the ass, and I won't ever make at least the oar mistake again.
It is amazing how much that organizational stuff kind of matters when you're doing it day in and day out. I seen it when I really got busy with the fishing rods here over the last 2 years. It was like, man, I thought this was organized in a fashion that will work, and it's like, nope, it's not. It needs to be changed a little bit more and tweaked out a little bit more. But it was actually really nice working for St Croix to see how they separated out.
Oh, sure, I imagine that.
They separated out and organized their whole manufacturing process. And so it's kind of at the core what I kind of do and how I kind of take my steps. I kind of do it in steps where they used to have an employee that did each step. I just kind of walk batches of rod through those.
Yeah, you're process-oriented.
Yeah, through those steps. So it makes it quite a bit more efficient when I'm doing it, to do it that way. Like, I'll do the week's order. I'll do all the handles at once and put them all on at once.
Sure.
Put them all at once.
Well, that way you're doing the same task.
Yeah.
It gets a little repetitive, but you bang through that, and then you're on to the next task.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you can, I think you can control your quality as well, each through in a batch form.
Yeah.
In all of them versus, the varying quality you might have if you took one rod from start to finish.
Yes. And let alone how much disorganization or how much more space it would take up, I guess, and it's kind of like you take the tools out, you use those tools, put them back in exactly the same spot as where they came from. So you're not looking. I kind of learned that. I worked construction for a while, and they had me go out with this guy. We were doing water heaters, and it was the owner of the company's father. And they said he was the quickest one at doing water heaters. And I watched him. I'm like, this is the slowest moving dude I've ever seen. How can he be the fastest? And then it dawned on me. I'm like, this guy never looks for a tool.
Yeah.
Like, he uses it. It goes right back to where it was supposed to be. And then the next time he needs it, he just reaches down and grabs it. Whereas watching all the other guys who are moving really fast, well, they were moving really fast, but
Yeah, they're moving fast to find tools.
They're moving fast to find stuff, and then just weren't getting the job done. So it really instilled quite a bit in me. And as far as keeping everything where it belongs, as far as, even in my bartending days, it was that way too. It's
well, if you want to serve 20 customers, man, you better know where your shit is.
And the busier you get, the more important it was to make sure to take that extra second to get it back there. That's one thing that I kind of had issues with too, with the rods at first. Is okay, I get really busy, so kind of let things get out of control. But it's actually the busier you get, the more time you got to spend to make sure you put everything back in the right spot, so you can actually
move it
forward more efficiently and stuff.
Yeah, we hit that with a podcast a little bit here. Yeah. It was like, holy cow, I'm editing a lot. I need to learn how to edit better.
Yeah, I've done that too. And I've been slacking here on the social media the last couple of months, but I don't know why. I kind of got burnt out on it, but just trying to figure out even how to do that. I mean,
that's been
pictures or any of that stuff and hashtag this, and I don't even know half the time.
It's been a challenge for me, and you're a little older than me, but I was kind of a social media and technological recluse for 10 years. And I came out of the hole this last year to kind of launch all this. And it's been quite the learning curve. And when I started to get bookings here in the last couple months for fishing, I got kind of hammered here after the 4th. And then I had a couple personal things and trips and a grad party, all this going on. I mean, I just got burnt out, and I was like, it's okay. It'll be there tomorrow. It'll be there the next day.
Those people that do it every day, I mean, they think, oh boy, all they do is create content or whatever. But man, some of those people, that's got to be a full-time job almost.
Oh, it is. A lot of them are. I mean, and I noticed how even in this trying to launch the podcast, the more I did that, the better results I'd have. Yeah, but it's kind of a double-edged sword, it
takes time.
It takes time, especially when you're fiddling around with it and don't know it that well. It takes a lot of time.
And that's it too. And for me too, with the fishing rods, it really helped to get the word out and the business out and the name out and stuff. And I really appreciate it when people, tag me and post and stuff. That really helps out a lot, and it helps me, to create content. I use a lot of that and stuff.
Well, hopefully we'll have some good content for you here over the next couple of weeks.
Because get some nice fish in the
I'm leaving here with that 8-weight today.
All right, that's what I like to hear. But
and I'm moving another rod off, and I'm going to have my 2 Chippewa rods in the boat.
Glad to hear. So I don't know. I've really gotten into. I'm really enjoying building the fly rods. I'm glad that end of it, because that was kind of my passion and my fishing. But I just assumed it would be a tougher nut to crack than trying to go with the spinning rods. I knew it built a quality product. Thought it might be easier to convince people in the spinning rod market, casting rod market, to go with a custom guy. Even for, I sell a lot of stuff that people are buying for gifts.
Sure. Retirement
gifts, wedding gifts. I've had a guy, I'd like to be in his wedding party. He bought everyone spinning rods.
Oh man!
And put the name, each one guy's name on.
I screwed up when I got married, right?
So it's weird, and that's where I thought it was really going to be focused at first, but with the one piece musky fly rod, it really kind of switched it over a little bit. But I really enjoy both of them, though. I really like tying the guides on. Is what I really like the best. The rest of the stuff is kind of gets therapeutic. It's almost, you can just get in the zone.
Yeah.
Go. It's maybe kind of like tying flies, sort of, but it's just real simple. I don't use any motors. I still do it all by hand. I don't use anything motorized for tying. I just do it old school by hand. Yeah, I sent a picture. I sent a picture of it out to the guys where I get my components and blanks from, and they're like, "Man, we haven't seen anything like that since China." That thing is old, but I got it for when I worked for St Croix. That was their standard tool, and I think that's probably still what they use up there. Fast once you get familiar with them, but I know a lot of people are going with motorized stuff, but they got their issues too.
I mean, it's I don't know. I my buddy, a good friend of mine, is a big fly fisher. He's the one who introduced me. He's I don't know, early 50s, and he's been canoeing these rivers up here for eons and casting musky flies, and he's the one who actually handed me musky on the fly and a couple of years ago. And he just bought a Loomis, and he's a big rod guy. Like he just spent, I think, $5,000 on it. Who's the guy that John Garrett buys his rods from out in Lyons, Colorado?
I'm not sure.
Mike Clark.
Okay, Bamboo or is
Bamboo?
Bamboo,
yeah. Which is a whole different ball game than we're talking.
Yeah,
but yeah, so he's got 20 bamboo rods.
Yeah,
ranging in all different kind of stuff, and nice enough guy. He gave me a freaking Mike Clark Peerless reel, like 4-weight, and I'm going, this is like $500 like minimum, and then it's only like 200 of them made.
Yeah,
it's like 111. So it's a good number too. It's like. Thank you.
I need more friends like you.
he's a lefty, and I think he bought it for his cousin, and his cousin's like, it's too expensive. I'm not going to fish with these. Fine.
Take it back.
Then I guess he gave it to me. So I was like, it's on my 4-weight trout rod, and I don't trout fish as much as I used to, but it's great. But rods are a particular thing. And I think maybe, especially with the conventional guys where, you got these big box stores and they can just go out and bend that tip on the ground and, oh, this looks good. It's a, 60, 100, whatever their price range is, it could be 20. We're seeing a lot of, I'm seeing a lot of rod companies starting to advertise on Instagram in the fly space. And I think they're, guys importing rods from China and other low cost regions. So, you're kind of cutting the grain here and kind of going against the mold. And your product stands for itself from what I can tell. I've been fishing your fly rod 4-piece now for 3 weeks, and I put it through a pretty freaking good ringer already. And I'm very confident that I can put that in a customer's hands and make it through most of the season as long as nobody messes it up.
That's the way it should be. And I try to get my, I do get some issues, it's a tough sport on stuff. I've gotten some guides that have come loose and whatnot. And some breakage, and you just take care of it as quick as you can for the customer. And
that's the other big key.
Stuff like that's probably usually, like I said, maybe a 2-week turn time for me on a lot of that stuff. You got to custom fit the broken sections. If there's a broken section, you got to custom fit it or whatever and get it out. But Usually I try to take care of those before incoming orders, believe it or not. I'll slip them, I won't, because a lot of times you don't have to do the handles or any of that. So you can slip them midway through the process.
Sure. Where it needs to fit in.
Doing one section and putting 3 guides on and throwing it up and epoxying it and letting it rotate for 12 hours is no big issue, and just get it out in the mail. So I try to take care of my warranty stuff real good that way, and try to keep fastidious notes on what people order also. So if they come back to me, it can be replicated. I've actually gone to the point of custom turning corks down for people where, and then I spec them out, at 7 different points. So it's one thing that always kind of like weirded me out about fly rods in a sense. It's kind of like, man, the only part you touch is the only part you can't change the size of. I've thought about actually.
And I'm
big grips and small grips and medium grips and offering them different sizes. But logistically, right now, I'm not to that point. But I do custom shaping and stuff on the.
Oh, I have smaller hands.
Yep.
I'm not.
That's why I like that synthetic grip too. It's a little bit thinner, and believe it or not, the difference is probably less than 0.04 of an inch. I mean,
it's that small.
It's that small, but it's that big of a difference when you got it in your hand.
I'll tell you, with that cork on the 10-weight, after a few hours of doing this, my hand actually is the part that goes first.
Yep.
And just holding on to that rod.
I can turn that down for you. Even after it's made, that can still be done.
I might swing by here on Tuesday on my way back then.
Yeah, that can be done.
I think we're going to be on the river too early to come by, and it'll be Sunday, so I don't want to bother you. But
I've actually made them and shaped them exact same as the synthetic grips. Really? And you can do that. I've done it where guys.
So what you're telling me is you can do anything.
This can be done with a little bit of time. It can be done.
So we've covered a lot with the rods, and you cover freshwater. You got a couple saltwater guys that come to you for rods yet?
I got a few saltwater guys.
So you can say you cover it. That's what
I cover it. But everything that I make is saltwater safe.
Okay.
If I know it's specifically going for saltwater, there's components that I'll use over other ones.
Sure.
I mean, you can go titanium and be completely bulletproof. Is it worth that huge added expense? I don't know.
I'd have to lean on you for that kind of education.
It depends on how deep your pockets are and what you want to spend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's where a lot of this can change too.
Even like a painted, even like black components over like silver components are actually a little bit more saltwater safe, just because they got that extra coating on it.
That makes sense.
But once you get that scratch, then it's and a lot of times where you see it in the saltwater is right where the components come together with the epoxy or whatever. Yep. It's right there. It's so hard to get all that salt out of that one little section. It's kind of like where your car rusts too. It's always in that hard spot to get there. It's always near that little crack where it starts to go. So.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the day I have to send my Scott title back, because I've seen a lot of salt water. So but I know who I'm gonna call when I need another saltwater rod made.
And if you want to be what is that? The International Game Fish Association compliant, there are some rules that most musky rods that are made today would not qualify for
a tarpon tournament.
No, probably not for a tarpon tournament or for the International Freshwater Game Fish Association record books. They have
really. Yeah,
they have to. It's an obscure regulation. Why I know it, I have no idea. But from the center of the reel seat to the end of the rod can only be 4 inches if you're out chasing records on that. So from the center of the reel foot, to the butt end of the rod can only be 4 inches. But you gotta. It's pretty obscure. No one really chases that record. That record. There's not many people chasing that. That's mostly a saltwater guy type thing.
Sure.
But the International Game Fishing Association. That's mostly the saltwater guys. So like saltwater guys call me, I'll be like, "Are you going to try to get it in any record books or anything like that?" Because it's like, we might need to switch that butt around a little bit. But I've only had one guy that was a concern of his, and actually he was up trying to chase a muskie on the fly, and he wanted to get it right. He was a saltwater guy. He's a saltwater guide, and he wanted to see if he could break one of those records. And I'm like, you don't have a fly rod here that's legal for that. But I was like, okay, I got an old one that I have. I don't make them like this anymore, but here's an old one with a short fighting butt on it. So.
Yeah, I've never been a records chaser. You couldn't tell me what the record books all say right now. All I know is that I just want to catch fish.
Yeah. There's a couple different organizations, and some are stricter than others on as far as what you got to do. And
hell, Musky in itself came out of the frickin' bag with controversy. So,
oh God, does it ever? It's great stories. I don't know if you've ever read Louis Spray's.
No, I haven't read much of his book. I've heard some of the stories.
Oh, it's a great read. It's a great one to get to leave in your bathroom, because you can kind of pick it up
anywhere
and read like half a chapter, and it's a good story. You don't need to know what happened before it really. You can kind of just pick it up anywhere. It's basically a bunch of antics of what life in the Northwoods used to be like in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, I guess. So, different place than it is now. Now they got to, believe it or not, they almost have laws here now compared to what they used to.
We're still south of Highway 8 here.
Oh yeah, just barely south of 8. Like, I think we're 12 miles south of 8. I ride my bicycle up there. It's about 12 miles south of 8.
Okay, we're like straight, kind of east of where I hang. My hunting property is just north of 8, but kind of the area that I've got a place in, and some of the other places I do a little bit of bird hunting is it's about 10 miles south of 8. Yeah. So once I go north of 8, it's like, we're north of 8. No more rules.
Yeah,
At least that's the old adage.
There's a lot of that. Some people say north of 64. It's all.
Well, then I think maybe that's where it used to be.
Yeah, each state has its own rules or whatever. Ever since they got that Stillwater Bridge put in, it's going to push the rules further and further north.
I had an opportunity to buy over in Stillwater or on the other side there before that bridge got approval.
Yep.
And that the gain on those pieces of property that I was just going to buy a lot and hold on to it.
I see a lot of very expensive cornfields over there.
Oh yeah. I bought just outside of where that is.
Okay.
So I'm hoping in 10, 15 years I'll be able to take the money and run further up north.
I'm sure there'll get to be too many people and you'll have to escape again. Yeah. But I remember they were fighting that bridge since I was a child.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
In
It's
the early 70s. They had that thing proposed, I think. And
well, I think the National Scenic Riverway was in 63, 64. Is
that when it started then?
I think that's when the St Croix went and ran by the feds. Yeah.
Okay.
Which honestly, thank God they did. What a beautiful resource for headwaters of the Mississippi kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, you go down to Prescott and St. Croix is definitely a lot cleaner than the Mississippi when they meet.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But I imagine that, it was shortly after they probably did that the legislation went in. I mean, it was decades they fought that.
Yeah. I think it'll end up being a good thing, kind of. I don't know. That old bridge in Stillwater is getting kind of wonky. And
it's a good thing, I think, because those communities that were just over there were very well much connected to across the river in the cities.
Well, I know a lot of guys that worked at the window factory. They'd drive their boats back and forth the river to get to and from work because they didn't want to deal with the drawbridge because someone would come with a boat and then they would have to go up and they'd be stuck there.
Oh, that's going to go.
In the wintertime, they'd drive their cars back and forth across. And
it's going to go back a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, because nowadays, with the bridge the way it is, I mean, it's a cakewalk to get in. I mean, I that's the way I take over here more often than not.
Okay,
94 is a nightmare sometimes.
Oh yeah.
It's all a nightmare over there from a driving perspective.
Driving from, I can't even believe when I drive back to Minneapolis, I'm like, I drove in this stuff. I'm like super like white knuckled, freaked out. It's like, I got to stay in my own lane. And I got to stop. This isn't good. I'm not used to this stuff. So, yeah, it's like stop at a stop sign for real. So I'm used to those slow rolls.
Oh, yeah.
No one's coming. We're good.
Yeah,
So.
I grew up in, a smaller town, and we spent a lot of time outside of town.
Yeah.
And that was so when I moved over to the cities, it was the first time I really moved to the big city.
Yeah.
And now every time I come back from across the river, I get about 5 minutes in, and it's just an overwhelming feeling of, when do I get to leave again?
Yeah.
It's just too many people. I don't even care so much about the politics or anything else over there. It's just too many people.
Yeah.
It's just bottom line.
Gotten that way for me too. And when I lived there, it didn't bother me too much. Kind of don't notice it.
Well, you moved up here. You said you're 31.
Yep, I moved up when I was 31. So
I started to get the itch to get out of there about 4 or 5 years after being there. So I would have been about that age.
Yep.
And now I've been there a little over 10 years, and it's just, I'm done.
Yeah.
I built the pole barn on my 32 acres. I built a very nice shop. I put all in, cashed my chips, put it all in. I put us in a position where we have to sell the house in order to build the next house.
Okay, yeah.
So I told my wife, if you don't want me living in the garage out there, like, we got to start making some commitments and promises to when this is going to come to fruition, because it's not going to be too very long. I'm going to give up completely on the city.
I was single. I've never been married, but I was single when I moved out here. And I had no idea what I was even going to be doing. I call him my uncle. It's my second cousin, really. He had the bar and the home listed, and the bar hadn't been around in probably 10 years, but they'd kept the liquor license up, and he just called me and said, "You still hate the cities?" I'm like, "Yep." He's like, "Well, I'll see you in a couple hours." He's like, "Just move up." And I'm like, "What am I going to be doing?" And he's like, "Don't worry about it." He said, leave your job in a way that you can go back if you want to after a year. He said, if you don't like it after a year, you can always sell it for more than what you paid for it. So I honestly had no idea that I was buying on the Chippewa River. I had no idea that I was buying a bar. Honestly, I was just done with the cities and cashing out and getting out of there. And I did. That was at noon, and I was up here by 5 p.m. signing papers.
No shit.
So I worked the rest of the day out and drove up. Yeah. And I think I had 3 rental properties at the time, and I had them sold the next day by noon. I sold them to my real estate agent. I'm done. And I'll move back if I wanted to. But
no, I think you made the right decision.
Yeah,
you got a little slice of heaven here.
Yeah, it is. It was I probably would have ended up making more money if I'd lived in the cities, but that ain't always the best, for you, or it ain't what it's really all about. I've enjoyed it. It's been a lot of hard work, worked a lot of hours, but I've got to live here, which is mostly got its good points. It's got some bad points,
Winter gets tough, yeah.
Yeah, winter can get long. I actually took up ice fishing.
Did you really?
Yeah, really got into ice fishing a lot.
Yeah.
I do make some ice fishing rods. They're not my favorite thing in the world to make. They're tough little They're tough little guys to make.
There's a lot of pressure on those rods if you're making, bigger fish rods.
Yeah, no.
Panfish rods.
The panfish rods are the ones that I don't like because they're so...
I suppose the noodle tip.
They're so noodly that it's hard to get any line tension, and I still wrap them all with thread. I don't use any, I know a lot of the commercial places will use shrink wrap.
Sure.
And shrink wrap the guides on and then epoxy over the top of it.
Is that how they're done?
A lot of it is, yeah. And I don't know, I figured it out and finally I've made a few, but yeah, I really got addicted to the ice fishing stuff. It
was if you can find good action, which you got a lot of options around here.
Yeah,
and you don't have a ton of people. You can find quiet over here.
Yeah, you can find quiet over here. There's a lot of lakes that get a lot of pressure in the area, though. But
you got a lot of little ones too.
You got a lot of little ones or off ones. It's weird. You'll see it where one winter there'll be. It's like ebbs and flows.
Yeah,
there'll be a good crop, and it's basically crappie bites is what everyone's chasing, the basin crappie. And then they slowly fish that lake out. So they move to another lake. And then after about 4 or 5 years, they move off that lake and move to another one. And then 4 or 5 years after that, they're back to the one that they started at. And it kind of all goes round robin. But there's some lakes around here where you can go out and if you want to catch 100 panfish, bluegills mostly, you can go out and do it and sort and pick. I like those ones just as much as the ones where you get big ones. They're just kind of different.
I'm actually working on hopefully hooking up with one of the DNR biologists for panfish, because I think they actually have some new regs coming out. I don't know if they're released yet.
Okay.
It's got to go through the Conservation Congress, and I don't know when that was or is.
Yeah, and they've changed a lot of the rules up here. I mean, some of the individual lakes up here have their own regulations.
Yep.
I mean, some of them are...
Now, 25 fish, was kind of a lot when you start thinking about...
Yeah, it's a lot on a lot of the lakes. There's some of the lakes in the area where you wish you could get everyone to keep 25.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, and now with the new electronics and stuff, you could really do a lot of damage to a lake real fast. I mean, you get 20... There's a lake around here, and it's probably 300 acres, but I'd say there was... Especially during the pandemic, there was 20 people out there, every day.
Yep.
40 on the weekends. Now, if they could each get a limit, I mean, they weren't catching that much, but I mean, you could. I mean, you could. You can burn through them pretty fast.
Oh yeah, I've seen it happen. I mean, you see it all the time in the cities.
Yeah, but it's weird though. You get those lakes up by Lindstrom, man, and they've been doing those things for 30 years.
I know.
They still just churn out fish. Me and Monica were just talking about that. I'm like, how's that fishing over there still, up by North Center, South Center, all those lakes? He says, man, they're still pulling fish out of there. I'm like, 50 years later, and they're still just pulling fish out of there like crazy. I was like, those must be those lakes that it's actually good that people fish it. Otherwise, I could only imagine how stunted out those guys.
Well, and I mean, you look at some of these. We used to fish back in the day. My brother was a dockhand up on Crane Lake up in northern Minnesota.
Okay, Crane.
Yeah, and so Voyagers was right there. Yep. Voyagers got a couple inner lakes that are landlocked.
Yep.
Shoepack is one of them. I don't know if you ever heard about the Shoepack Musky.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all stunted.
Somebody, it's actually
somebody
a different
recently doing some
research on it, because I think it's a different species. Actually, it's been so long.
That's kind of what they're. I think they're
subspecies. I don't know if they'd probably be able to.
I tried to connect with a guy on. I think I saw it on Instagram. Actually, he was doing some research for a college project or a DNR project. Something.
I can't remember who it was. I think I sold him a rod, but I can't remember.
Oh, really? Nice. Yeah. It's a really interesting. I've been in there a few times, and it kind of pulled my attention when I saw that. But yeah, you look at that lake, and let's just say it isn't a subspecies. It's just a standard muskellunge.
Yep.
I mean, that's exactly what the problem is why they're not going to be any bigger. There's too many of them.
Yep.
So,
there's just what that gene pool holds.
And
even if it is a straight up, muskie could be bigger, but it's just that's what the gene pool holds.
Or that's maybe all the lake really allows for those fish to grow.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different dynamics that play in. Is kind of my point.
Oh yeah,
and
way more than we can control.
That's for certain. Yeah, and when you play science with it all the time, and science, unfortunately, the meaning of a lot of that has been washed away. So you have to dig into the numbers and actually see if there is science involved in it, or if it's just like I read this article the other day on, screw it, I'm going to call them out for it, whatever, Project Upland, and it was a publication, and it was just an editorial letter to the article, but I believe it was by a writer, and included the climate change clock and just very divisive issues. And I don't care which side you're on. It's a divisive issue, and either you believe it or you don't believe it, but you have to believe it in order to not be divisive. So like it just automatically makes people divisive. And the article was written in a sense that there was a compilation of scientists that had taken an opinion of something, and it wasn't even really valid. And I take that back. It wasn't the Project Upland. It was a different article, but it was, hey, I took a poll of 150 scientists, and they all concurred that, this might be, unsafe or whatever. Well, they call that science today. There's no scientific method given. There's no hypothesis out there given, and there's no corroborating evidence backing that data up. So that's where I agree with your statement. There's a lot more that we can control.
Yeah, and how do you do science in the wild world, really? You know what I mean? So it's so hard to say what's right. I mean, so many of the lakes are so much different, but it's been nice to see the DNR has been a little bit somewhat fluid on the regulations with the panfish especially, and you see it on the walleye and even the bass. I mean, there's some lakes around here now with the bass where they say keep every one.
Yeah. And
just because they got too many, or there's panfish lakes where you can keep 15 total, 5 of each species, or there's some where you can get 10
down in
mix.
I think it's the Ogallie River down in Pierce County.
Yep.
The DNR is actively asking anglers to Katy Creek going into Ogallie is a brook trout.
Yep, they're asking them to keep them.
Keep the brown trout.
Oh, to keep the brown trout. To keep the brown trout out.
Exactly. Yeah, there were some dynamics with some different strains of trout because they started actually taking a timber coulee trout and trying to replicate that strain in the hatcheries.
Okay.
And it's a stronger swimming fish. It's more tolerant because it's right from timber coulee down by La Crosse.
It's taking the cooler water. It's moving into the colder water, which is more of the brook trout. And
exactly.
They're out competing the brookies.
Exactly.
Brook trout.
Yep. So they're trying to get brown trout out of that tributaries of the Ogallie. So the DNR's doing a lot, and I don't mean to call them out in any way. I think they're doing better than they have been in the past. I remember growing up, I felt like a lot of times there were certain issues that just had their heads in the sand on and weren't doing anything about. And now you see getting a little bit more hand sturdy and changing things and testing the waters on maybe what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Instead of just casting that 25 fish across every lake for panfish, you're just going to decimate some of these lakes.
I think we're starting to get to that point now too, where even amongst the sportsmen, they're kind of getting it now too. You know what I mean? As far as letting them go. Me and a buddy last winter were out ice fishing on a lake, a smaller lake, but crappie fishing. And if they're small, we'd hold them by the hole, and if they kicked, we'd let them go. You know what I mean? Yep. But after about a minute, they all started popping up all around us. It's like, well, we might as well have either kept all those or consider it to be like keeping. I mean, a lot of those crappies don't go back down. We didn't realize how many didn't go back down, but we were on 2 inches of perfectly clear ice, and you could see them popping up, and I was like, oh my God, it's okay. We might as well start keeping them. You know what I mean?
Well, and there's some value in keeping some of those littler fish. If you're catching, 8-9 inch crappies. Yeah. And once in a while you get a 12-14. Yeah. Like, maybe the 12-14 should go back.
I like eating the small
ones. If you can get a knife over the freaking gill or over the rib bones, I'll take this. There's a certain size though that makes that a little difficult. 8 inches, anything bigger than that, it gets a lot easier. Even at 8 inches, it's at like a 9-inch crappie to me. I can get a good fillet off of that, and a couple of them I can get a meal. And to the sportsman's point, like I've had many instances where I could, pound out a limit. I don't fish for a limit anymore. It's just the mentality has changed, I think, with most fishermen. We were joking earlier about, hot spotting, and I'm like, I really don't care. I put every freaking muskie I catch back in the water anyways. And I think most other guys do too. Yeah. So it's refreshing. I think that there's some good signs going forward for, here in Wisconsin for fishing, and hunting's been getting better too. And we slaughtered some wolves up here. Did you guys do any of that? Or
I didn't personally get in on any of it.
Yeah, I didn't either.
There was some of it going on in the area. It just stood open and closed so quick.
Oh, I talked to a couple of the wardens, and other people that they had such an overwhelming harvest that they were actually taken back by how many wolves were really here. Yeah. I think that surprised the DNR a little too.
Yeah. I think they know it's here.
Yeah. Again, another divisive issue we don't need to get into.
It's kind of weird, originally it was, what was it supposed to be? 350 we were going to allow is what the state agreed to before they'd regulate or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
I think we definitely have over 350. Oh. I mean, before the first season, when they did have that one season here earlier, but there were some wolf packs around here where you could walk up to them. I mean, I was walking to within 50 yards of some of these things, right out in the middle of the field, and they didn't care.
Back like maybe 12, 15 years ago. Yep. No, it was a little bit longer than that. Back in Bayfield County, I came out of the woods on a four-wheeler. I had wolves running along the side of me, 100 yards out, paralleling me on a four-wheeler in a field.
They're huge animals.
Yeah.
They were starting to,
get
a little close to people, I thought. But
and once they get that close to people, all of a sudden the other stuff happens: livestock, dogs, and I think between the hound hunters and the bird hunters up here, I think they raised enough. That and probably the cat. I
heard a lot from the
ag and or the farmers and stuff too.
Yeah, the hound guys. From what I've heard, I know a few of them. I'm not big into it, but they said they were having more problems early in the year when they were training their dogs.
Sure.
When the pups were young.
Yep, that makes sense.
And you get close to a pack that has pups that can't really outrun a dog and defend itself. But they said they didn't, in the fall, they said the issues were a lot lower than what they were when they were out there in the springtime.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I know when I talk to, and this is just a random guy, so I mean, take it for what it's worth, but he was a local up in kind of that Draper area. I was up in the national forest trying to find grouse in the national forest where they don't exist because they don't harvest any timber.
Yeah, that's true.
Which they're changing too, which is cool to see. But I ended up on a dirt road, and I turned around, and a guy came up pulled out on an ATV and started talking to me, and in that area alone, between there and Clam Lake, they had like 12 dogs that had been killed in the fall. Okay. And that was last year.
Oh, really?
Before the hunt. So I know that some of the wardens that, I shouldn't say that, DNR folks, again, the harvest kind of surprised them.
Yeah.
That, how quickly they...
Yeah, they had to shut it down pretty...
And how far south they had gotten some of those big packs. I mean, there were splinters of them. They thought, but I mean, there was packs down south of 94.
Yeah, I hear them here pretty routinely, almost every night. I keep pretty late hours, but I hear them almost every night. You can hear the wolves going.
Yeah, I don't hear 'em much over by me over in western Wisconsin, but you don't have to go very far north.
Start hearing them.
Yeah, you get. Yeah, well, we can wrap things up here, Tom. I gotta hit the head too. Man, we've been at this almost an hour and a half, and that's plenty long. Let me ask you just a couple quick questions. How listeners can reach out to you?
Okay.
What's the best way? Through your website, give you a call.
Give me a call. Usually,
You've been super responsive to me on the telephone.
Yeah, I pretty much answer 24/7. Even when it's a spam caller, I answer. So I'm not one of those people that screen calls. And it's a lot easier for me to handle issues over the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I find it to be a lot quicker than going back and forth, text messaging or emailing.
Sure.
But I always like to confirm up with emails or text messages. You know what I mean? I'd rather talk to you, get it sorted out, and then send you out.
Sure.
Just for confirmation, this is exactly what you were looking for, correct? You want this 8-weight with this handle, with this and this and this and this and this. And go that way with it.
Sure.
I find it much easier to communicate over a phone.
We'll talk afterwards, but I will, if it's okay with you, probably include your telephone number in the show notes.
Yep.
Include your Instagram handle and website, and then maybe even get some discount for the listeners potentially if they
you bet,
if they want to. So
take care of that.
Kick ass, man. I really appreciate you hosting me up
been
here
a
today, and I'll let you get to the bathroom, and then I'm going to hit that next. And
All right.
I hope everybody's enjoyed the show today.
All right.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Amazing Outdoors. I'm so thankful to you, all you listeners. You really make this thing happen. Thank you for subscribing, downloading, and all the things you've done so far. If you haven't, please, please, please share, like, comment, subscribe so you're getting the latest episode. We're about to kick off season 2 here and got some really great things coming. So you don't want to miss it. Make sure you subscribe. Lastly, like I always do, again, hunting season's around the corner. It'll be here soon, or it has already started depending on how long I use this outro. But make sure you get your wallet out. These groups really need your help. Do your research. Make sure that you find something that's passionate to you and local, and help your local habitat projects and the partners that are making those things happen. So you have birds or deer or whatever it is, your quarry, you have that to hunt and a space to do it. You guys have a great rest of your summer here. Tight lines. Make sure you're shooting straight for the season, and good luck with all your prep work. Can't wait to get out into the field.